Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky, Field Yates, and Adam Schefter are with us too. This is our second hour. If you missed the first one, I'm sorry. Go back and watch it online, but we're with you until 5 p.m. And let's get right to the action. One of the bigger surprises of last night was Ty Simpson being taken by the Rams, 13th overall. And it's an ideal situation for Simpson. He'll get to learn behind Matthew Stafford. Sean McVay was asked about the Rams' new quarterback room last night. Here's more of what he said.
Let's make one thing clear. This is Matthew's team. And you get a chance to be able to address, the backup quarterback. We've got Stetson. We've talked about the importance of Jimmy. We're excited to be able to work with him, and I think he's really fortunate to be able to learn from the reigning MVP, a first ballot Hall of Famer, and a guy that shows what it looks like every single day.
All right, I'll just say this. That's a coach that's standing by his quarterback. I think he's probably a little more excited about Ty Simpson than maybe that press conference illustrated. We'll talk about that a little more. But, Mina, how do you see all this playing out in the Rams QB room?
Obviously a dream situation for Ty Simpson, and great for him and his development. I do wonder how Matthew Stafford feels about the pick, not as competition. Nobody thinks that he is being brought in to compete with him either in the near or I would say even next year if Stafford continues to play. But because of the opportunity cost there. This gets compared a lot to the Packers taking Jordan Love in 2020. There's a big difference between pick 26 when Jordan Love was taken and pick 13, given the players that were available. Specifically, Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC, Kenyon Sadiq. We know that the Rams have been using more multiple tight end sets. That would have been a dream fit. And again, while this might not seem like an issue now, Davante Adams is 34 years old. He missed games last year with the hammy. If we get to November, December, and they're down a receiver, or God forbid Nakua gets hurt, I do think this is going to be a conversation because this is a team that should be contending for the Super Bowl.
Spoke to Ram sources this morning, and we say, well, you're carrying water for McVay. Let me just tell you what went on yesterday, and I'll be clear with it here. This is a very difficult decision to make when you have a quarterback who just was knocking on the door to getting to a Super Bowl and who just won MVP. But they wanted to draft Ty Simpson, so they spoke with Matthew Stafford in person and let him know earlier in the day that this might happen later in the evening. Matthew Stafford was aware. They spoke to the owner, Stan Kroenke, and said, we're going to do this. And Kroenke said, okay. But if you think that Les Snead went renegade and went rogue, you don't know how that. Nothing in that, from the uniforms to anything, goes through that building without Sean McVay's approval and Sean McVay's final word. So this was a Sean McVay decision, and he made it. He also stressed, and they stressed to everyone internally, Trent McDuffie was their 29th pick in this draft. If you want to look at that as the first-round pick and say, did we get Stafford help? Yeah, you got him in the area where they were the most efficient last year, and that's defensive back, and they got a guy who's better than anyone who's coming out of the draft at that position. So they have that pick, they make the Simpson pick, and the thought is, all right, he's not going to see the field, he's going to be a red shirt, whatever it is. But if anything, if you're a Rams fan and you're trying to look for a silver lining, because it is so confusing, I understand it, Sean McVay's not going to Amazon in 2 years. Sean McVay's not going to ESPN in 3 years. Sean McVay basically said, I'm not going anywhere, because more than anyone, he would be the one who would want to get Sadiq or Lemon. And he took a player who's not going to contribute next season so that they have a long runway and this thing could be very smooth, handed over when the time is right. But Dan Orlovsky, to your point earlier, they don't plan on ever having a draft pick in the top 10 to get one of these great quarterbacks. So at some point, if everyone else in the league didn't like Ty Simpson, they did. They were going to take him, and they'll deal with Stafford's feelings, and they'll deal with everyone else criticizing the pick. It just is what it is. They're building for the long term.
Well, let's be honest. They didn't get a top 10 pick this time. It was the 13th pick. And as reports say, they also tried to trade out of it. Right? So it wasn't like we want to stand at 13. We think Ty Simpson is worth this 13th pick, and we believe at this position we have, for sure, our quarterback of the future. So I think that's part of what we have to say as well. And I do get that you're saying that Sean McVay isn't going anywhere, but in front of us on the pivot 2 years ago, he said he needed to reevaluate, right? And then now put himself back in the position to where he is re-energized to do the job. And so that was a question years ago.
Always a question.
And this is the same head coach who was absolutely gutted for Matthew Stafford and Davante Adams after the NFC Championship. So what this signifies to me, it has to be one of two things. It has to be, we believe that without this first-round pick, the 4 points we were down to the Seattle Seahawks, we have adjusted and fixed that with Jalen Watson and with Trent McDuffie on the defensive side of the ball. And two, like Marcus said earlier, if we have to, At some point during the season, if we see a deficiency, we are willing to go sell the form again with a win now move.
Can I do the windy fingers here? Ryan Clark, you might be onto something, and it might not be during the season, but they might have other things in their pocket, whether it be in the draft or if there's a disgruntled player elsewhere. Like, what's the windy fingers? This one? Like, you're onto something here. They're not just going to sit there.
I think those were the Schrager fingers.
Yeah, whatever it is. There's always another thing they can go to in the bag.
Yeah.
That's how they operate. And in this case, I understand the criticism, and the body language was not great last night. So all this is fair. But in their heads, they told Stafford, and we're going to figure out we'll deal with it.
I refuse to criticize it because this front office has shown as much competency as anybody in the NFL. This team, I'm going to say it again, was left for dead after their Super Bowl.
Right.
Nobody expected them to be competing for championships or in an NFC championship game. They've continued to get there. You know why? Because they said, we got to go get Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. Well, keep going.
Go ahead.
That's what confuses me, though. They said Jared Goff is limited. We need a freak quarterback. We are trading for Stafford. Ty Simpson's not a free quarterback.
But there ain't no Staffords in the league.
I know, but I'm just saying he's such a different
And that's
prototype.
where I'm at. Like if you're Sean McVay and you're confident in what you've shown as far as development of quarterbacks, remember, y'all, this will be Sean McVay's first drafted quarterback since Jared Goff.
He didn't draft Jared Goff.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. He had Jared, right? Went to a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah.
This will be the first quarterback he's been able to day one develop until he becomes a starter in the league. And I'm telling you right now, like, Brock Purdy saved the San Francisco 49ers for the decisions that they made. You look at the Los Angeles Rams and where they are right now. Them being active in free agency, trade deadline, moves during the season is why they were Super Bowl champions. It wasn't because of their drafts. It just wasn't. They had good players, but they made a lot of moves that put them over the hump during a season. I love the pick. I absolutely love it because at 13, one, you ain't spending a crap load of money. The other thing is, if you do suck, guess what position you're in next time to get another one that's better. I don't think anybody in LA is looking at this move as some catastrophic.
I'm just going to say this. The big difference for me between Ty Simpson and all of the quarterbacks who were drafted while other Hall of Fame quarterbacks were on the team, those quarterbacks had played so much football. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love.
I mean, Dan, he's going to have to
that's Aaron Rodgers. All those guys had played so much ball.
Yeah, I would say this. I think, one, Les Snead has drafted Jared Goff and acquired Matthew Stafford. I think he knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. Let's give him that grace. Sean McVay in Washington when they drafted Kirk Cousins. I think both those guys got pretty darn good eyes for what quarterbacks should look like playing the position.
That's where my confidence lies.
You can't criticize it because it works. This is the right thing to do.
You can absolutely criticize it.
Mina, there's no...
No, I'm not saying that it might not turn out to be right, but the idea that they're suddenly above reproach, like...
This is the right thing to do.
Well, Makai Lemon and Sadiq are on the board, and both of them make them better.
But what happens if they look at Stribling out of Ole Miss or Burks from Oklahoma, the same player as Makai Lemon?
But your credit, what you've done previously should give you leeway.
Sure.
This is not y'all, we talking about the Los Angeles Rams like they've made mistakes over the last 5
right now,
years.
The Green Bay Packers or the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I would rather be the Green Bay Packers every day. I was the one telling people, what the hell are you mad that this team drafted Jordan Love for? Bro, Matthew Stafford is 40.
And Marcus, I'll tell you this.
We're pointing to the quarterback that works out.
No one is saying that it's stupid to prepare for the future.
Right.
We're talking about the way in which you go about it, which, admittedly, if they were trying to trade out of 13, they also understood that. That's all I'm saying.
Dan, you could absolutely criticize it based on the fact that no one else took him in the top 12 and there was no real interest. Like, the player at 13 is very rich.
Why is it
motive?
rich?
It's a great motive.
Why is it rich?
It's not rich
because
to
of
me.
how
That's
he was
my
valued
point.
by the rest of the NFL. There's multiple teams that need
Browns could use a great
quarterbacks.
quarterback.
But
But Sean
the Jets
McVay
could've
and
used
Les
one. Nobody
Snead,
else.
the guys
I
that have
know.
been good at that position over the last 8 years in the league,
Not really.
that's indisputable.
But they haven't
drafted
been
one
as
quarterback
good
and
as
then they
anybody.
traded him.
Right, they got a quarterback.
They had to fix it, so they traded for best.
Jared Goff,
yeah.
right? Jared Goff was universally that draft, right with Carson Wentz. Everybody thought he was going to be number one. Les Snead ain't go in there and reinvent the wheel in drafting him. Now, what Sean McVay did was come to the team in his year 2 and make him a quarterback that could get you to a Super Bowl.
Sure.
We all knew what Matthew Stafford was.
Yeah,
they got a proven commodity that you knew exactly what he was to add to a team that was built everywhere else.
They also drafted Stetson Bennett. I just wanted to mention that. It's not.
All right, I get all of that.
Well, nobody's saying it's wrong, no swag.
I'm not saying
but it's not a slam dunk.
But they
get the benefit of the doubt.
They let Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl. Right. And they was like, you not good enough.
Right.
I'm talking about the decision making. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about over time, the decisions that this front office has made has proved to work every time.
And we're talking about it like the story is written. It's a period. This is 12. We don't know what's going to happen.
No one is going to know
okay.
if this works out.
Exactly. And I think that's the big key here,
That's
too,
why it's
right?
a good conversation.
We can criticize it. We can argue about it. But we don't know because Ty Simpson's going to have to be developed, and he's going to have to be developed
Windy fingers.
behind the scenes.
More to come.
He's not going to be on the field, which is crazy. More to come. If they do something in that world, you say that makes a lot of sense. Adam, you want to add on this conversation, then we'll talk about some more quarterbacks.
Yeah, one final thought before we go into other topics. I don't know that there was another team that was going to be picking Ty Simpson anytime soon. The New York Jets do not appear to have been interested in Ty Simpson in this draft. The Cleveland Browns were at 24. That might have been the next target. Could the Arizona Cardinals have taken a leap up the board? Possibly. Could there have been another team out there that made a move up the board? You never know. But the truth of the matter is there was going to be a ways to go before another team was going to take Ty Simpson. The issue is the Rams couldn't move back. They were stuck at 13. They weren't getting any calls to move up or move back in the draft. And so they had to take the quarterback they wanted there, which was probably earlier and richer, to use Peter's word, than they would like to have gone, but that was the choice that they were left with, and they didn't want to lose out on the player.
It's important context on all sides, right? If you just look at it as, okay, they took the player 13 overall and you don't have that context, you say, well, wow, that might be too high to take him. When you figure out that they wanted to do it, they didn't have a trade partner, okay, you can see why it would make sense, and now let's see if they get a receiver somewhere else. Adam, there are some quarterback-needy teams that are going to be drafting tonight. What do we know there?
Well, we know that Arizona's still looking for a quarterback. Cleveland potentially could add a quarterback. Pittsburgh in the middle rounds will be on the lookout for a quarterback. And so we would expect that quarterbacks like Carson Beck and Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller potentially could hear their names called tonight. We'll see which team goes first, but the top two quarterbacks now off the board with the two quarterbacks going last night. Meanwhile, Laura, there are still 8 teams, a quarter of the NFL, that have not yet made a pick in this draft. Hard to imagine, but it is true. The 49ers, Bills, Bengals, Colts, Falcons, Packers, Jaguars, and Broncos all have yet to make a selection in the 2026 NFL Draft. Tonight, they will get to make their move. And the 49ers are scheduled right now to start out tonight's proceedings. They have the 33rd pick. They started yesterday with pick 27, moved back again, picked up extra draft choices. They are meeting to discuss whether they want to stay at that spot where they potentially could wind up adding a wide receiver, or whether they would wind up moving back in the draft for more picks. Yet those meetings will occur today, and the 49ers will figure out what they want to do, stay or go at 33.
Fascinating to think about all those teams that have yet to make a pick in this draft. It makes it even more exciting what we'll see happen tonight. And then, of course, on Saturday, thanks to Adam, more from you coming, and we've got a lot more to get to still on NFL Live coming your way from Pittsburgh. The Eagles swooped in to land Makai Lemon with the pick before this. You see Malachi Lawrence, who got later in the round, and Caleb Downs, and make Swagoo get in touch with his inner peace. Swag, how would you grade the Cowboys draft so far?
Yes. Yes, guys. Listen.
His voice went so. Yes.
I'm going to bring this together because it's not all about the draft.
Yeah.
I thought Dallas for years missed opportunities at the trade deadline and in free agency to set themselves up for a draft to be like this. When you go get Quentin Williams, when you sign Kobe Durant, when you bring in George Pickens on offense in a trade, it gives you a clearer view of what you need. Clearly, Dallas defensively needed help. They trade away or release. Trade or release Trayvon Diggs.
Trayvon Diggs is cut.
They cut him, right? They cut Trayvon Diggs. You also had Demarion Overshown coming back from an injury who flashed like none other at the linebacker spot. But you created an opportunity to have a clear mind by what you did during football season, go and get Quinnen and George Pickens. You gave yourself an opportunity now to be one or two players away from being a completely different football team, and they got two good ones. And I'm happy that they positioned themselves before we got to the draft, because nobody has been upset about how Dallas has drafted. They haven't supplemented that. I think they supplemented it this year.
You know, the draft is such a game of chess, and it's sometimes easy to make the first overall pick or the second overall pick or the third overall pick. The Cowboys had the 12th pick, and they really wanted either Delane or Downs. That's Christian Parker, who's the defensive coordinator. He's 34 years old, comes from the Eagles. He's a defensive backs coach. And they had to just hold the line.
Yeah.
They had, like, you see Delane go at 6, you got to pray and hope that we could just hold the line long enough where no one takes him at 7, 8, 9, 10. And then finally at 11, they're like, let's just not mess around anymore.
Yeah.
They move up. They give up 2 fifth-round picks. Christian Parker is a defensive mastermind, high-end guy. This player, Caleb Downs, is an avatar of him. It's a coach on the field. So now you have the highest IQ, smartest player in this draft on defense, and you have a new defensive coordinator. You put them together, and it fills every need. It's almost like it was met in the stars. It was a perfect fit, and they held the line so well. That's an A-plus pick.
I expect this defense to flirt with being a top 10 defense next year.
And that was the worst defense in the league a year ago.
I expect them to flirt with being a top 10 defense. If Christian Parker is who people say he is, they have added Jalen Thompson.
Yep.
They have added Kobe Durant. They have added Rashawn Gary and Caleb Downs and a healthy Overshown.
Yep.
You mean to tell me that can't be a top 10 defense?
Should be.
If Rashawn Gary becomes a little bit what he was in the past, and I think I want to, can he mentor Lawrence in the proper way?
Absolutely.
Can he? I think that's the huge. Caleb Downs is going to be great. Can Makai Lawrence be the complement to Rashawn Gary?
Really, yes, really good staff. Greg Ellis is still around Dallas, teaching D linemen how to rush the passer. DeMarcus goes back. This guy will develop. Think about it. When is the last guy that Dallas drafted on defense up front that didn't pan out? Also, outside of Mozzie Smith, Odigizua got a $90 million contract.
Taco Charlton. The pick guys.
But those guys weren't walking into the infrastructure that they're walking into.
That's not a crazy thought, right? This should be a top 3rd defense, top 10 defense.
I would be shocked if they wasn't at least middle of the pack.
Yeah. All right, that's great news for Cowboys fans. They also will make their next pick tonight in the 3rd round. How about elsewhere in the NFC East? The Eagles, Cowboys and Eagles executed a rare interdivision trade that allowed Philly to move up and draft receiver Makai Lemon, 20th overall. Now, the way it went down, pretty crazy. Lemon was on the phone with the Steelers when the Eagles made the trade. Listen to this.
Come on, man. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, why Philly coach? Yeah.
Oh, Philly just traded for you.
Hello?
This is Philly. They just traded for you. Philly's picking you right now.
I mean, I actually get chills just watching it because it's so crazy to think how this can be such a roller coaster ride for fans, for the players, for the teams. Adam, how did the Eagles get Lemon?
Well, first of all, the Pittsburgh Steelers had more picks than anybody in the draft. So they could have done what the Eagles did, but they chose to stand pat and get Makai Lemon on the phone. And the Eagles, always being ultra aggressive, jumped up to get him. Now, what's interesting about this is that this goes back to the Ty Simpson pick, because one of the players that the Rams talked about drafting was Makai Lemon. And when the Rams bypassed Makai Lemon, that sprung him loose at that point in time to fall later in the draft at 20. If the Rams had gone ahead and sought receiving help, the pick very well might have been Makai Lemon. But they opted to go with Ty Simpson, which meant that Makai Lemon slid down the draft board to a spot where eventually the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles, hated rivals, wind up making a trade pick swap that enables Philadelphia to go up to get Makai Lemon, Dallas to go back, get extra picks, and get Makai Lawrence. And these two teams who hadn't made a trade since the trade that enabled Dallas to get Micah Parsons And Philadelphia, Devontae Smith made another trade that resulted in Philly getting another wide receiver and Dallas getting another pass rusher.
It's just a wild, wild thing to think about how it all went down. But again, huge pickup for the Eagles thanks to Adam Field. How does Makai Lemon fit on this Eagles offense?
Yeah, Laura, the Biletnikoff winner from last season, one of his superpowers was his run after catch strength. And it's not necessarily because he's the fastest guy. He's probably a low 4.5s player. It's a combination of vision, toughness, and contact strength. Now, you can argue that a lot of this was due to the offensive structure that Philadelphia ran last year under that much maligned system. But they were second to last in terms of yards after the catch in 2025. They need to find ways, Mina, to give their wide receivers opportunities to be more dynamic. What Makai Lemon lacks in stature, he's a smaller guy, maybe even a slower wide receiver by first-round comparisons. He does make up for that tenacity you see with the football in his hands.
The Eagles taking Makai Lemon tells me a couple things about how they look at their current group of receivers. One, A.J. Brown is likely gone, and this is also coupled with some of the additions they made in free agency. But I think it also says something about Devontae Smith, which is that they think he can be the number one in this offense, which sounds crazy because we're talking about they took a receiver in the first round. But I see Lemon's role being a lot of what you talked about. He's going to be primarily in the slot. I could see him getting touches out of the backfield. Think about like Jaden Reed, Sean Mannion's coming from Green Bay. Devontae, I think, is going to play primarily outside. They believe, and I'm in agreement with this, I think Devontae Smith is incredibly underrated. He can be a 3-level threat for them. He can be their explosive playmaker. He can get some of those A.J. Brown targets because he has proven that his size has not been a deterrent in the NFL.
And since we're here at the draft, let's go back to Devontae Smith being drafted 10th overall after a historic year. In Alabama. And so Devontae has shown you, go back to Minnesota last season, that explosive week with him being able to get the football down the field. So you could see more of that from him. And then the rest of this group feels like what Green Bay sort of did with their group. You add Dontavian Wicks, who in my opinion was underutilized in Green Bay, and Makai Lemon, a guy I got to see play in person, the tenacity, the effort. And when he gets the football in his hands, he turns into a running back. And so if they can find more creative ways to give guys run after the catch, Makai Lemon can benefit from that. But I believe one-on-ones with Devontae Smith as the primary receiver, there is very few better route runners in all of the NFL.
I like that over y'all's heads it says greatness is on the clock, because that's a lot of greatness right there. You guys are awesome.
Take it.
The New York Jets, they ended up with 3 first-round picks. They drafted David Bailey and then tight end Kenyon Sadiq, wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. So just an absolute haul for New York. We'll see how it ends up paying off, and Sadiq and Cooper Jr. will help a Jets offense that last season became the first team in the NFL history to play at least 16 games and not have at least one receiver with over 400-plus yards. They had 368 fewer receiving yards than any other team in 2025. Just all bad. RC, what did these picks tell you, though, about the Jets' plan moving forward?
It tells me that the Jets are doing both, much as Dan spoke about. They are building for the future, but also they're trying to win right now. When you move back up into the first round to draft Omar Cooper Jr., you see him as that Jarvis Landry, Amon-Ra St. Brown type of positional player. And then on the outside, you now give Garrett Wilson opportunities to get one-on-ones. And everyone knows that Sadiq was the most athletic tight end in all of this draft. And I believe he gives you better matchup opportunities than Makai Lemon would have, based on speed, based on explosion, but also based on size and position. Now you pair him with Mason Taylor and Breece Hall as a running back. When you look at this skill group, adding Geno Smith, they have an opportunity to be much more explosive than they were last year. And the one thing that Aaron Glenn knows, if he doesn't show marketed improvement this year, he will not have a job next.
I think it's the most exciting and anticipated offensive group the Jets can give a young quarterback in 2 decades. Honestly.
I'm laughing because I'm wondering who that quarterback is, but go on.
Well,
yeah.
We all are. We'll find out in 27 who that quarterback's going to be.
But it'll be guys set in place
You've
for
always
that,
like,
though.
oh, man, defense, Mark Sanchez, but it's a defense. This, you can now draft a quarterback. You've got a good young offensive line. You've got multiple weapons on the outside. Now, if you're a quarterback going to the Jets in comparison to years, you're like, I got pieces to work with, so kudos to the Jets. The additions, Sadiq. I envision Sadiq being Zach Ertz in this offense. Frank Reich comes over as the new offensive coordinator this year, and Zach Ertz, as Frank is his play caller, Frank Reich loves tight ends. Loves. That's the main thing. And so Sadiq, while raw, is crazy talented. It's just funny, not funny, but I'm fascinated to see that the Jets are now a destination for their quarterback of the future. That's rare.
I like that, though.
I think a big part of this, Sadiq specifically, it's going to be about his mind more than his ability.
What do you mean?
Learning how to play the position as a pro, right? We've seen guys that don't have a crazy amount of speed have success at tight end. We've seen uber athletes never really pan out.
Do you feel it's more of a feel?
I feel it's a feel, but it's also, to your point, D.O., Frank Wright, it's also coaching. Like, every rookie needs development. Very rarely, right? But I'll go here with the Jets. The Jets were in a prime position. Unlike teams where I think the worst situation you can be in is in the gray and waffling, trying to figure out, is this piece the right piece to make? The Jets were awful last year.
Blank slate.
And it's the best thing ever happened to them.
And
it's the best thing ever happened to
them. There was a lot of Bailey or Reese talk, and at the end of the day, Bailey had 14.5 sacks in college and 19.5 tackles for a loss. And they know they're getting a proven commodity, at least based on the tape. Now, it might not work out, and Reese might be a Hall of Famer. That's fine. The discussion of Reese or Bailey, the odds went all the way to Reese, and everyone in the world thought they were taking Reese. They went Bailey, and it wasn't because they were trying to give smoke screens. They canceled the 30 visit because they felt they knew everything they needed to know from David Bailey. They saw the film, they met with him at the Combine, they met with him on his pro day. The one that's amazing, they didn't meet with Sadiq. Sadiq had no idea they were even looking at him. Sadiq had no version of contact with them. So the Sadiq one's almost a bigger surprise because Makai Lemon was still on the board. Because Cooper was still on the board. To get Cooper also, that's a great haul.
To me, that's the thing. To move back up and get Cooper says, even though we love our first 2 picks, we also like this guy. We feel like he's a fit in what we want to do. And anybody that's watched Garrett Wilson's career has just been screaming, please give dude another opportunity.
Anybody, right.
Give him somebody else that can at least give him a one-on-one and a quarterback that can reach him. Now they have that.
Dan, question. Geno last year right now, can he get back to the Geno we saw at the Pro Bowl a couple years ago?
I don't believe so. I think the best case for the Jets is they're competitive in every game. They win 6 games. They save Aaron Glenn's job. Muji stays there, and they go get their guy next year. That's best case scenario.
All right, there's the script for the Jets. By the way, the Jets are on the clock. With
not getting Arch Manning with that plan.
Yeah, they're not. They have the 12th pick, though, in tonight's second round. We'll see what they do there. So far, they've done a really good. For a second, I was like, did he just say? Like, all right, we're moving on. All right, Swag, which player or team ate last night?
CC Mawanoa. I'm going right back to him. Anytime you get on national TV and say you'll die for another man, you're a bad man. I looked at his parents lay the lays on him. He thought about all of the things that he went through at Miami. And if you turn the tape on, there's a lot of pancake and knockdown blocks, which they count on the NFL level. How many times can he move a guy against his will? And when he pulls, does he find color? And he always seems to, and somebody's jersey on the back is dirty.
I think the Bears were thrilled to get Dylan Thieneman because everybody thought he was going to be gone by pick 25 and filled such a need for them. They got the second best safety in the draft. Safety is a need. You signed Kobe Bryant, but to me, he can play the post. You saw that at Purdue. You can also lean into the versatility you saw at Oregon. He has man coverage ability. He's got incredible straight line speed, as you saw at the Combine. Tremendous against the run. This was a great pick for Chicago.
I'm going to go the Baltimore Ravens. And, of course, they take Vanga Ioane from Penn State. This guy's going to be an all-pro for 10 years, more than likely. Everyone that knows offensive line play says he's in the conversation for the best offensive lineman in the draft. A.Q. Shipley absolutely loves him. The physical in the run game, the physicality in the run game's a big deal. Baltimore needed it, and they got it.
Marcus, I don't know if this is like Giants.com, but I'm going back to just the Giants as a whole here.
Yeah.
And I look at what we were talking about leading up to this draft. Who's making the decisions? What's it look like? What's the Harbaugh identity? What's Joe Shane's role? Well, guess what? They ended up with 2 blue-chip players, the best offensive tackle in this draft in their eyes and the best pass rusher in this draft in their eyes. 2 players in the top 10 who they are very excited about. What are the Giants going to be? What's their identity? I think we got an idea. They're going to be tough, they're going to be smart, and they're going to be nimble.
Yeah, Harbaugh loves that. Swag, let's stay with the Giants here. We know you love Maui Noah as the player, but was that the right pick for New York?
I would know it was the right pick. I think I would have took Tyson at 5.
Ah.
Hold on.
I'm telling you, I think I would have did it. Listen, Malik Neighbors obviously showed that he is phenomenal. I would put 2 number 1s on the field for Jackson Dart. The line of scrimmage wasn't a big issue for them on offense. They got some offensive linemen, but you can do a little work later on in the draft as well. But I would have went wide receiver. I ain't lying, bro. I like Reese. I like his ability. I like his athleticism. You better have a plan for him. I saw Micah Parsons, as good as he was, waffle a little bit early in his career with the Cowboys, trying to figure out how do we use him, where do we put him. And sometimes those guys are so athletically good that you get enticed to do all kind of crazy stuff, and they become masters of nothing. The Giants better have a plan for him.
I'll be honest. I thought Arvell Reese was one of the best picks of the entire first round. I think he's an unbelievable football player, and you ask about the plan. So it sounds like they are playing him at will linebacker. And all the talk leading up to the draft was, can Arvell Reese get better at rushing the passer? Where is he, in terms of his development? I think what got lost in the conversation is he is a hell of a linebacker.
Yes, he is.
The Giants' run defense was horrible last year. You see this, 5.3 yards per carry. That's the worst they've ever had in franchise history. Arvell Reese is tremendous against the run. He is such a good tackler. He's got great play strength, shedding blocks. He has tremendous vision and speed, hunting down the ball carrier. And then you can lean into his versatility now. John Harbaugh comes from Baltimore. I think about how Roquan Smith was used when they traded for him, mugging him up and then dictating protections and dropping him into coverage. I think he can spy quarterbacks. I think he can learn to be a pass rusher, but in the meantime, he is so helpful to them at the linebacker position next to Tremaine Edmonds.
Who was your comp for
I love this pick.
MK?
Oh, my goodness.
I had Quay Walker.
Quay Walker when he's playing linebacker.
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, but the hope is that he develops as a pass rusher, and then you end up getting a different sort of player.
So my wife is out of town on a girls trip, right?
Cool.
My son,
Let's go, Tiffany.
My son Noah yesterday texted me in the morning, Dad, do we have money in our account for lunch? Freaking out, overly dramatic. And I texted him, I said, stop worrying, okay? Stop being so emotional and dramatic. And I was thought to myself, man, he's just like me.
You told him that?
Yeah.
I was about to say.
That sounds like you. Yeah.
Just like me, probably why I wasn't a good enough quarterback to play as a starter. So last night, in the moment, I'm like, take the receiver at 5. I was with you, overly emotional, maybe a little dramatic, and I sit back now and I go, well done, Giants.
Yeah.
You now have the best offensive line you've had in 10 years.
Yes.
In front of Jackson Dart.
Yep.
That matters. I would also say this, because if you look at this offensive line,
That's nice.
that's good. This matters.
Yeah.
And Evanil's still there. They're not giving up on him. He hasn't been great.
It matters, right?
Got depth.
And so afterwards, go get a receiver tonight. I feel about the same way about them like I do the Rams.
Yeah.
You got the 37th pick, and you better go get a receiver tonight because you really only got one real guy in Neighbors.
Hey, but was there money in the lunch account? Are they going
that
to...
story?
My wife
okay?
responded back. I'm texting Tiffany on the plane. She responded back, relax. There's enough money, so.
To me,
Good.
you build this defense out later.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I felt about it.
All right, interesting. Coming up, rounds 2 and 3 are just around the corner. This place is getting packed. I think we're going to have similar amount of fans as we had last night, which is remarkable considering that was record-setting.